Every gamer knows that sinking feeling when a franchise changes its DNA. On October 6, 2024, when 343 Industries rebranded to Halo Studios and announced they were ditching their proprietary Sleep Space engine for Unreal Engine 5, the internet immediately panicked. And honestly, the fear was completely understandable. Halo isn't just shiny armor and iconic music. It's the precise weight of a jump, the drift of a warthog, and the exact floaty trajectory of a plasma grenade. For over 20 years, that unique game feel lived inside custom-built engine loops. So when Halo Campaign Evolve was announced, a ground-up Unreal Engine 5 remake launching across Xbox, PC, and PS5, players ask the same burning question: can an engine built for every game on the planet actually preserve the hyper-specific soul of a 2001 classic? Or would 20 years of muscle memory vanish overnight? To understand why making Unreal feel like 2001 was such an engineering nightmare, we have to look back at the secret heartbeat hiding inside the original game. To understand why players were so terrified, we have to travel back to 2001 and look at how Bungie actually built Halo Combat Evolve. On the surface, you are driving warthogs and throwing plasma grenades, but beneath the screen, the entire universe was running on a strict metronome, a fixed 30 Hz tick rate. A tick rate is simply how many times per second the game engine updates its internal world, calculating where you are, where you are moving, and where your bullets go. Back in 2001, Bungie's original engine didn't separate graphics from physics logic. Everything was welded directly to that 13 Hz heartbeat. Every time Master Chief accelerated into a strafe, slid into cover with weapon inertia, or fired a magnum shot across Blood Gulch, the math was calculated in 30 crisp slices every second. Bungie even added clever little mathematical tricks inside this slow-level loop. For instance, when you pull the trigger, the engine will double update the bullet's movement on its very first tick. That single invisible tweak is why shot leading felt so oddly satisfying and precise. It was brilliant engineering. By forcing physics into a fixed heartbeat, Bungie gave Halo a signature, tactical weight that millions of players could instantly recognize with their eyes closed. You weren't just playing a shooter, your hands were feeling the exact rhythm of a 2001 engine loop. Which brings us to the real engineering nightmare. Their 13 Hz heartbeat was a closed system built specifically for legacy hardware. And if you try to drop that old school math directly into a modern game engine, it instantly falls apart. So back in 2001, every step Master Chief took, every strafe and every grenade throw was tied directly to that fixed 13 Hz heartbeat. It was rigid, it was predictable, and above all, it gave Halo its iconic weight. Now fast forward to modern engines like Unreal Engine 5. If you take their original physics style and drop it into a fresh Unreal Engine 5 project, something breaks instantly. Master Chief feels floaty, your strafe deceleration vanishes, sliding feels unnaturally long, and shot leading feels completely out of sync. To rebuild Halo Studios couldn't just flip a retro switch. They had to rewrite custom physics logic from scratch, essentially forcing a state-of-the-art engine to deliberately calculate movement like a machine from 25 years ago. When fans realized this, panic set in. Everyone assumed the classic Halo feel was dead on arrival. But what actually happened when Campaign Evolve launched in July 26 was a plot twist nobody saw coming. So when Halo Studios announced they were rebuilding the original 2001 campaign in Unreal Engine 5, fans braced for impact. Everyone assumed the iconic drift acceleration, weapon inertia, and floaty jumps would feel completely wrong in a modern engine. And honestly, that fear was entirely justified. Trying to replicate 25 years old physics logic inside a off-the-shelf engine is usually a recipe for floaty, awkward movement. But here is the plot twist. They actually nailed. When Halo Campaign Evolved launched, tech reviewers and diehard fans were stunned. The movement felt spot on. The sniper rifle shot leading, the sharp strafe deceleration, the precise float of the Master Chief. It was all there. Halo Studios didn't just rely on stock Unreal physics. Game director Greg Herman and his team built custom logic under the hood specifically to honor Bungie's original 30 Hz mathematical tricks, translating them into Unreal Engine 5 while keeping a locked 60 frames per second on both Xbox Series X and PS5. It proved that a studio can preserve legacy feel in a modern engine, provided they pay the engineering cost to rebuild custom physics bridges. In game development though, you almost never truly eliminate a technical trade-off. You just swap an old problem for a new one. Halo Studios solved the classic movement puzzle, but wrapping legacy physics in Unreal Engine 5's hyper-detailed nanogeometry and lumen lightning create a brand new hurdle. They conquered the invisible math of 2001, but keeping it smooth in 26 required a sacrifice that PC players felt before they even fired a single shot. So Halo Studios managed to save the classic movement, but bringing Halo into Unreal Engine 5 wasn't a free lunch. By fixing the physics, they solved one massive headache, only to run straight into every modern PC gamer's absolute worst nightmare: shader stutter. If you play big PC releases recently, you know this exact frustration. You're speeding down an alien corridor, you pull the trigger on a charged plasma pistol, and freeze. Your game hitches right as the action starts. Here's why that happens. A shader is simply a short script that tells your graphic card how light, metal, or shield flares should look in a single frame. On consoles, every machine has identical hardware, so developers pre-package those instructions. But on PC, thousands of hardware combinations exist. If your graphics card hasn't seen a specific visual effect before, it has to translate that script on the fly. Doing that right when a plasma bolt flies at your face forces your frame rate off a cliff. For Halo Combat Evolved, where a split-second gunplay is everything, combat stutter would completely kill the magic. So game director Greg Herman and principal producer Casey Wu made a deliberate trade-off. They decided to make you wait before you ever shoot a grunt. When you put up the game on PC for the first time or after updating your graphic drivers, you are greeted by a mandatory 2 to 3 minute pre-completion screen. It sits there forcing your graphic cards to proceed thousands of visual recipes upfront before gameplay ever begins. Nobody likes staring at the progress bar for 3 minutes when they just want to play, but that tiny delay buys smooth locked combat. The moment a firefight starts, the stutter is completely gone. It's a smart fix for shooting, but resolving those visual scripts early only solves half the puzzle. Because once you step onto the surface of the ring, Unreal Engine 5 drops an entirely different performance monster on your lap. So, you sit through those 2 minutes of shader pre-completion, jump into Halo Campaign Evolved, and the combat feels smooth as butter. The gunplay is crisp, the 60 FPS target on Xbox Series X holds strong, and Master Chief moves with the exactly nostalgic weight. Problem solved, right? Well, not quite. Because while pre-building shaders saves you from stutter during a firefight, Unreal Engine 5 introduces a completely different beast, transversal stutter. In the 2001 original, levels were visually simple, the geometry was basic, the textures were small, and the hardware kept almost everything it needed right in memory. Today, Unreal Engine 5 flexes two massive technological muscles, Nanite and Lumen. Nanite lets artists throw cinematic level models made of millions of tiny polygons directly into the world, while Lumen bounces realistic light around every hallway in real time. It looks incredible, but all that visual spectacle comes with a hidden cost: pure data volume. As you run across Halo's iconic ring, the game world isn't loaded all at once. It slices up into invisible map sectors. The exact second you step across the line between a dark corridor and a massive alien landscape, the engine has to frantically unload the old area and stream gigabytes of high geometry data for the new one. Even on modern consoles, targeting a smooth 60 frames per second at dynamic 1080p, that massive surge of data crossing the system can cause a split-second frame hiccup. That is transversal stutter. This reveals the true cost of rebuilding a classic game in modern engine. In 2001, Bungie was fighting against the limits of math and fixed tick rates. Today, Koori Studios successfully recreated that classic movement physics, but they traded mathematical simplicity for immense graphical bandwidth. You get stunning environments, but the engine is constantly running a high-speed relay race behind the scenes just to keep up with your footsteps. And recognizing that trade-off between performance, complex math, and visual engine features changes how you look at every single modern remaster. So, when you see a game stutter for a fraction of a second as you step into a new area, that isn't just lazy coding. It is the visible scene where cutting-edge rendering meets 20-year-old physics. For years, fans argued that moving Halo to Unreal Engine 5 would destroy its identity, that you couldn't strafe, jump, or lead a plasma shot with that classic 2001 weight without Bungie's original engine. At the same time, developers warned that abandoning internal tools meant losing control of their subtle field that made the series famous. Halo Campaign Evolved proved both sides wrong, but not without a price. When Halo Studios abandoned the Sleep Space engine, they didn't get a magical button that converted old code into modern visuals. They had to fight Unreal's default features at every turn. They added a mandatory 2-minute pre-completion step on PC just to keep active combat smooth. And they accept tiny streaming hitches across level boundaries so Nanite and Lumen could make iconic Halo rings look truly next-gen. Whether you play games, build them, or plan to hire a team to make one, this is the ultimate truth of game dev. An engine switch is never a free upgrade. It is a contract written in trade-offs. You trade internal engine upkeep for off-the-shelf tools. You trade simple physics for complex lightning. You trade combat stutter for longer startup load times. Halo Campaign Evolved didn't feel like 2001 by accident. It felt that way because the team actively paid for every single frame of nostalgia in custom engineering. An engine changes never solves your technical problems. It just chooses which ones you're willing to fight.